Alright, welcome back everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of our beginner's fly tying tutorial playlist I'm putting together here. So this is the first nymph I wanted to show you guys. It's a super easy fly to tie. It's a really good, panfish fly, stock trout fly. It's just a good attractor fly. Attractor fly is basically just any fly that isn't really meant to resemble any kind of insect or anything. It just gets attention of fish. So all you need to tie this fly is some Chartreuse ultra chenille. That's it. You can add some dubbing at the collar, and I'll show you guys when we tie it how I do that. It'll be our first time using dubbing in a fly, I think, too. So it'll be a little opportunity to learn, how to dub. And yeah, tying this fly today on a Partridge wide gap jig style hook, size 16. But like any nymph hook will really work. You can make this fly work on pretty much any hook you have. And I'm pairing it up with a 7/64 slotted tungsten bead, just because I like to get these flies down. I like to use them as weight. But yeah, pretty straightforward fly. I don't think it'll take us very long, and we'll get right to it.
All right, as you see, we got our hook in the vise. We got our bead on there. Not going to cover how to put a bead on since we covered that in the last episode. But one thing to note is when you are tying with these jig style hooks, you got to use a slotted bead instead of a regular Cyclops bead. But same as the other one, put the hook point through the small hole first. Got a spool of UTC 140 denier and Chartreuse spooled up. You can use Vivus 8/0, Vivus 6/0. I'm just using this because this is the only Chartreuse thread I have, but you don't have to match it exactly. And we're going to go ahead and make a jam knot like I showed you guys how to do in the last video to get our thread started. You can come with your scissors and snip your tag in. And you're going to run your thread back just a few wraps shy of the hook point. And then you're going to start with our one and only material here, the Chartreuse chenille. Now, similar to our Estaz, this stuff has a core. So what you're going to do is before you tie it in, is you're going to take your thumbnail and expose like an 1/8 of an inch. Nothing crazy. Do it by just kind of stripping the fibers off. You'll see when you do that, you get your little core exposed. So just going to lay that in the top of your hook. You can catch it any way you'd like. If you want to do a pinch wrap like I showed you in the last video, you can do that to keep your core right on top. But this is a fly that doesn't have to be super pretty. So once you got your chenille tied in, give it a tug, make sure it's really in there. And we're going to make a tail. And how we're going to do that is we're just going to loop the chenille over itself. So you can, usually I like to make my tails about the length of the hook shank, but you can kind of find whatever works for you. If you're using a longer hook, you might want to use a bigger tail. But that looks right to me. And then all you're going to do is kind of pinch your loop in your left hand and catch it to lock it in. So we're going to give it just one wrap. Give it 2, 3, really pull down on it, make sure it's nice and secure. And you take the rest of your chenille here and fold it back. Run your thread up to the front of the fly. And just like what we did with the Estaz, we're going to wrap our chenille up the hook in the opposite direction of our thread. So when we tie our thread, it goes up and away from us. With this material, we're going to send it under the hook shank. You can do one complete turn at the back, and then just kind of work your way up. You're not going to need much at all, especially on these smaller hooks. And you're going to stop just about when your chenille touches the bead. You can see right here. That's our final wrap. And then all you're going to do, just like the Estaz in the last video, you're going to take one wrap over it, 2 wraps over it, and then a few in front. And then you come with your scissors and cut it off close. All right, so you could whip finish right now, build a little collar, and this fly would be done. But what I'm going to show you how to do now is, since we haven't covered dubbing, I'm going to try and squeak a little dubbing collar right in here. It's going to might bulk up our fly. I don't really need it on this one, but just for the sake of showing you guys how to add some dubbing, I will. So one thing you might want to get is one of these Hareline ice dub dispensers. I'm going to be using it a lot. And for this, we're going to come in and take this caddis green color, because it's really close. So One tip is when you buy these, you might not have you can see the fibers sticking out of mine. The focus is kind of funky, but if you don't have those fibers yet, just take your whip finish tool and you take the hook, you can kind of plunge it in and you can kind of pull up some fibers with that. Now, with dubbing, less is always more. So you're going to see how little I'm going to take here. Even this might be too much. Just the tiniest bit. I'm actually going to cut this like in half. Right? So just the tiniest bit, and then you hold it up to your thread and twist in one direction. Always the same direction. You don't want to go back and forth. And you see it creates a little noodle here of dubbing. Do it nice and tight. Some people like to use dubbing wax. I never really used it in the past. But anyway, once you get that on, you just wrap it. Right? You see we're adding a little bit of flash to the fly. Nothing crazy. And then we'll come in with our whip finish tool to build a little collar. Showed you how to use this in the last video, so you go back and look at that video if you don't know how to use one yet. And we're just going to do a 5 to 6 turn whip finish to make a little collar. That's it. Super, super simple fly. Panfish love them. Stock trout love them. And you can really pump out a bunch of these on short order. If you're a last minute tire like me and you need to make a few because you're fishing the next day, you can easily do that with this fly. And as always, come in with a little bit of head cement. Let that soak in. And that's the fly. First nymph of the series. Super simple, but it catches fish. Thanks for watching.